The passionate moment between Roman and Violet had reached a boiling point. Clothes were ripped off. Violet's fingers fumbled with Roman's belt, while he shrugged out of his shirt, muscles flexing. Where the heck was Asher? Alaric thought frantically. "Don't do this!" Alaric groaned, dragging himself across the floor, fighting the venom. But Roman and Violet were too caught up in the moment to hear. Just as Violet got Roman's belt undone and reached for his zipper, the door flew open. For a split second, Alaric thought it was Asher. Nope. It was Griffin, looking utterly stunned. Griffin's eyes darted from Roman and Violet to Alaric on the floor. His expression went from shocked to serious in a flash. Relief washed over Alaric. "Stop him!" Alaric yelled, his voice raspy but determined. Griffin got the message. He and Alaric had always seen eye to eye about Roman's crazy impulses. Griffin slammed the door shut and stepped forward, moving slowly and deliberately. Roman immediately tensed, pulling Violet behind him like a shield. His eyes narrowed, scales appearing on his skin as he prepared for a fight. But Griffin wasn't backing down. He kept his eyes locked on Roman. Roman spat venom, but Griffin dodged every drop. Then, with a burst of speed, Griffin was on Roman, landing a single, powerful punch to his jaw. Roman dropped like a stone, unconscious before he hit the floor. Silence. Alaric let out a shaky breath. "About time," he muttered, a weak smirk on his face. But Alaric had forgotten about Violet, and Violet knew how to get attention. She sashayed over to Griffin, putting her hand on his chest. "You're finally here, my big alpha," she purred. "Oh, no." Alaric's blood ran cold. "Don't let her touch," he started to shout. But it was too late. Violet grabbed Griffin's face and kissed him hard. "Oh, hell no," Alaric thought, watching helplessly as Griffin, their only hope, fell under Violet's spell. Griffin kissed her back with a fiery passion, his strong arms pulling Violet's small frame tightly against his. The kiss was intense and all-consuming, leaving no doubt that he was just as captivated by her as Roman had been. By the time they broke apart, Griffin's eyes were dilated, pupils blown wide with an unnatural light. It was painfully obvious he was under Violet's spell, too. Alaric's heart sank as he watched Violet shamelessly run her hand down Griffin's chest, her touch bold and purposeful. "Take me, please," Violet begged, her voice thick with desire. "I can't wait anymore. Do me!" Griffin's response was instant, his deep voice laced with a dangerous edge. "As you wish, my lady." Alaric groaned inwardly. Any hope he'd had for Griffin to save the day vanished. This was it. The situation had totally spiraled out of control. Violet, wearing a smug grin, bent over the desk in front of Griffin, clearly ready for action. Her smile widened when his strong hands wrapped around her neck, figuring he wanted to get a little rough. But her smile quickly faded as Griffin's grip tightened and tightened until Violet struggled to breathe. Spots danced in her vision as panic flashed across her face. Moments later, her body went limp, collapsing unconscious across the desk. Griffin stared down at her, then groaned in frustration. "Can someone please tell me what the heck is going on here?" Alaric's lips twitched into a wide, relieved grin. "Thank goodness," he muttered. The tension finally broke, and Alaric started to laugh. It wasn't just a chuckle, but a full-blown, hysterical laugh that echoed through the classroom. Tears streamed down his face as his body shook with the force of his amusement. Griffin, still standing over Violet, frowned. "What's so funny?" he asked, irritated and confused. Alaric struggled to catch his breath, wiping his tears. "Because this has been the craziest day ever. And, dude," he paused, his laughter bubbling up again, "you should look down." Confused, Griffin followed Alaric's suggestion and glanced down. His eyes widened in horror as he saw the massive straining against his pants. "Oh, hell," Griffin groaned, dragging a hand down his face in annoyance. "Are you serious right now?" But Alaric just laughed harder, the venom finally wearing off without him even realizing it. And that's when Asher rushed in. Asher stumbled into the room, a mess of ruffled hair and wide, disbelieving eyes. He stared at the scene. Violet, and unconscious on the floor, Roman sprawled out beside her. His brain struggled to make sense of it. This wasn't how things were supposed to go, especially after he'd spent the whole night using his powers, playing his mind games. That kind of thing took a lot out of him. His power was both a gift and a curse. Overusing it meant a killer headache, the kind that could bring a grown man to his knees. That's why he crashed in one of Alaric's secret hideouts, figuring Violet would come looking for him, desperate to satisfy the craving he'd planted in her mind. A craving only he could quench. But she wasn't ready yet. His little queen needed a bit more teasing before he gave her what she wanted. No way she'd find him in his hideout. She barely knew him or his ways. He needed the downtime to rest and clear his head. He'd heard stories about other mind freaks losing their grip, going paranoid, or even insane from the strain. Asher wasn't about to let that happen to him. The alpha of the West was going to get what he wanted and live a long, comfortable life. Who knew a little nap could almost cost him everything? Now, standing amidst the chaos, rage twisted his features. "What have you done to?" he roared. He didn't get to finish. Lightning crackled, and before Asher could react, Alaric unleashed his fury. Electric tendrils slammed into Asher's chest, dropping him to the ground, his body convulsing. A guttural groan escaped him as the electricity surged through him, leaving him shaking and helpless. Silence descended on the room, punctuated only by the fading hum of the lightning and Asher's ragged breaths. Alaric stood over him, his face like ice, wisps of electricity still dancing around his fingertips. "You dare accuse me when this whole mess is your fault?" he growled. "Alaric," Griffin said, his voice bored, like the groaning guy on the floor was no big deal. "We know what he's like. Don't waste your energy on him." Griffin looked over at Violet. "You really think knocking her out will fix this?" Alaric's gaze softened for a second as he looked at Violet, then hardened again. "I don't think so," he admitted. "And we can't take that chance. We need to get her to the healer. She'll know how to deal with whatever this idiot did to her." He shot Asher a look that could curdle milk. Griffin raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure about that? The second we leave this room, the Oracle's going to have a field day. This is going to be the biggest scandal of the year." "She already knows something," Alaric said grimly. "Whether we leave or not, she'll have her story. But she doesn't know the details. Only 5 of us know what really happened, and unless Roman's buddy can keep his mouth shut, it'll just be gossip. We move now." Griffin let out a low whistle and gave a mock salute. "Whatever you say, boss." He started gathering Violet's scattered clothes, being careful not to stare at her body. It was a tough job, but he managed. As he worked, Asher groaned from the floor. "Don't touch her," he rasped. "She's mine. I'm supposed to be her first. Her number 1 before any of you." Another crack of lightning cut him off, leaving him writhing as Alaric glared down at him. Asher trembled, muttering threats about how he was going to kill Alaric when he got the chance. Ignoring the drama, Griffin finished dressing Violet and gently lifted her into his arms. She looked so small and delicate against his broad chest, her peaceful expression tugging at something inside him. For a brief moment, a wave of protectiveness washed over him, a powerful urge to shield her from the world. Griffin marched toward the door with Violet securely in his arms. Just as they were about to leave, Asher's hoarse voice cut through the air. "Don't take her to the infirmary." Both Griffin and Alaric turned to face him, their expressions unreadable as they studied the disheveled Asher struggling on the ground. It was clear that even speaking was difficult for him, but he forced the words out. "You know what they do there. They can't have her." A shadow passed over Griffin and Alaric's faces, dark and foreboding. They exchanged a silent, knowing look, and Asher knew he had their attention. His voice cracked as he continued. "Take her to my clubhouse instead." The moment Asher mentioned his clubhouse, Griffin let out a deep, menacing growl that reverberated through the room. His body stiffened in defiance, his eyes flashing with anger. "Fine," Asher relented with a grimace. "Your clubhouse, then. But call Eleanor. She'll come, and she can heal her. Just don't take her to the infirmary." "Not the infirmary." Griffin and Alaric shared another look, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. After a moment, they seemed to come to an unspoken agreement. Without a word, Griffin adjusted Violet in his arms and began to move again. Asher's desperate, insistent voice rang out once more. "I'll come visit. I need to see her." Alaric's cold glare turned even frostier. "Do that, and I'll fry your..." he snapped, sending a powerful bolt of lightning Asher's way. The crackling energy knocked him out cold. Griffin raised an eyebrow at Alaric, but said nothing. Instead, he stated firmly, "I'll take her to my clubhouse." "And I'll get Eleanor," Alaric replied, though he made no move to leave. Griffin tilted his head slightly, recognizing the hesitation. "I give you my word," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "I won't do anything to her. You have my oath." Alaric studied Griffin for a long moment, searching his cardinal brother's face. Finally satisfied, Alaric gave a curt nod and turned to leave, heading off to summon Eleanor. Only then did Griffin continue on his way, carrying Violet toward the safety of his clubhouse. Unfortunately, class had just ended as Griffin stepped into the hallway with Violet in his arms. The bustling corridor came to an abrupt halt as all eyes turned to the Alpha carrying the unconscious girl. Among the crowd was Griffin's girlfriend, Amanda. Her eyes narrowed into sharp slits the moment she saw them. Amanda's jealousy flared instantly. "What are you doing with her?" she snapped, pointing an accusatory finger at Violet, who looked utterly at peace in Griffin's arms. Griffin barely spared her a glance. "Something happened. I'll explain later." But Amanda wasn't having it. "No," she barked, stepping in front of him. "You're going to explain now. Why is she in your arms? What does she mean to you?" Griffin stopped, his jaw tightening as his patience wore thin. His sharp amber eyes flashed with irritation, and his voice dropped to a low growl. "Amanda," he warned, "move!" She didn't budge. "No," she spat, her voice rising. "You owe me an explanation." That was the last straw. Griffin's head snapped up, and he roared, a sound that echoed through the hallway like a clap of thunder. The sheer force of it sent Amanda stumbling backward, landing on her butt with a yelp. The crowd gasped, shrinking away from the display. Griffin's imposing figure loomed over her, and for the first time, Amanda got a first-hand glimpse of the beast lurking beneath his usually calm exterior. Her defiance crumbled into fear as she stared up at him, eyes wide and trembling. Griffin's voice was ice cold. "I don't want to see you in my bed again. We're done." Without waiting for a response, he turned and continued walking, Violet still secure in his arms. The hallway fell silent, the tension so thick you could choke on it. It wasn't until Amanda's friends rushed to her side, helping her up, that the hallway stirred back to life. But Amanda wasn't crying. Instead, her hands were clenched into fists, and her face burned with rage. "Violet Purple!" she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "She's going to pay for this."
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.